Hi everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. The next page in our taco manual is going to take us to the Yucatan Peninsula, to one of the iconic dishes from the Yucatan. It's called Castacán. Now, it's a variety of a pork belly dish that is cooked in a very special way to create this beautiful crispiness on the surface of it, because the skin side is still left on there. I'm going to take you through all the details of how to achieve that, because it's really glorious. And then we're going to cut that up and mix it with all the vegetable flavors of the Yucatan that are so classic. Things that are a little bit like pico de gallo salsa, but done from the Yucatan perspective. Okay, so I've got right in front of me here this pork belly, but you can see that it still has the skin left on it. Now, that's not something you're going to find in just an everyday grocery store. You'll need to go to a butcher shop to do that, or to go to a really good grocery store and perhaps order it as a special order. Now, I've cut it into two pieces here. This is about 1.5 pounds. But I'm going to go and score the skin of this at about 1/2 inch intervals, and going about 1/4 inch deep in those. Yeah, I think I've got, that didn't get quite scored enough on that side there. And then turn it, and we're going to cross hatch it through all of this. And then after I have done all of that, we're going to salt it. Okay, I've cut through all of this. You really don't want to pierce all the way through the skin here. That's why I said about 1/4 inch deep. Over here, I did cut all the way through. The pieces can fall off in the final cooking of this. But now we're going to do a good salting on top and bottom. Now, in the Yucatan Peninsula, when they're making Kastakan, they don't usually do it quite this thick. The pieces would usually be about 1/2 inch thick or so, with the meat right below the skin there. This one looks more like the traditional Kastakan, but in the States, we typically will get our pork belly at about 1 inch thick or so. Okay, so now I would say the best thing to do is to let this sit for at least an hour for the salt to begin to dissolve right into it. I'm not going to wait that hour to go on to the next step here, but oftentimes I'll just do this whole process the day before I want to cook my Kastakan. Now, I've got pork lard here, so this is very much like making carnitas. If you have about an 8-inch wide pot to do your cooking in, it will take about 4 cups of lard here, about 2 pounds if you're buying it in a grocery store where it has, excuse me, it has given you the weight and not the volume of it. So I'm sliding this in now, and the most important thing, so I've melted this down over a kind of medium heat here. The most important thing is that the pork belly be completely submerged. So if you don't have enough, if your pot's kind of wider, you'll probably need to add a little more than the 4 cups that I mentioned before. Now, I have this set up so that I can monitor with a thermometer the temperature of the fat here, because we want to cook this really slowly. We want it to be at about 250 degrees for the next 1.5 hours. So this is sort of unattended cooking, but you need to glance every once in a while at your temperature on your thermometer to make sure that the oil is not getting too hot. I'll show you what this looks like when it's ready to come out after that 1.5 hours of cooking, and the meat will be super tender. Okay. Now let's talk about the vegetables while this is sort of gurgling away over here, getting tender. We have some cabbage. What we're going to make is what they would call in the Yucatan salpicón, and it is a little bit, as I mentioned before, like a pico de gallo, but it has radishes and cabbage in it as well. So I'm going to cut all of these things into small pieces. We have red onion, very classic in the Yucatan Peninsula. We have habanero chili, chili, again, a very classic thing. And then we have some radishes and tomato. I'm going to keep the avocado off to the side for a final serving, and then we'll chop up some cilantro and put that into. So I've got some knife work to do here. Okay, I know that was a lot of lard that I have in that pan there, but let me just tell you that you can use it for a bunch of things. First of all, you can use it over and over again, but you're going to want to make really, really good carnitas at some point, and so you're going to need that same amount of lard. And you could use it 5 or 6 more times, but you have to store it in the refrigerator after it's cooled down completely. And when you make frijoles refritos, you're going to want a little bit of that really porky tasting lard to just perfume them, to make them taste like they're on another level. So embrace cooking in lard this way. You're going to thank me for this later. Now back to the recipe. Last ingredient here is the red onion that I've diced up. And I'm rinsing it under cold water to rinse off all of that, the stuff that makes onion taste strong. It's in Spanish called desflemando la cebolla, deflaming the onion, shake off all of the excess liquid there. And we've got our cabbage, habanero chili, tomato, cilantro, radishes, and finally the red onion there. And then I'm just going to mix everything together. The seasoning for this is going to be salt and lime juice. In the Yucatan Peninsula, where they use a lot of sour orange, that's not a sweet orange that just happens to taste kind of sour. It's a different variety of orange that is as sour as a lemon, okay? And it has a very faint flavor of orange, but not strong flavor of orange. So everybody in the Yucatan says if you can't get it, and it's harder to find in the US, to substitute lime juice. So that's what I'm doing today. And I'm just going to squeeze this lime here. It's a good juicy lime. And I want to make sure that this is tangy because we're going to need that against the richness of the pork. So it's about 3 tablespoons or so of that. And then I'm going to add some salt to it. And this should be sort of bold flavored. That habanero is going to give it some nice heat, but also a really lovely tropical fruit-like flavor. So give this a taste to see how our seasonings are. I think we're in the right spot with that. Now, it's been about an hour and a half on the pork belly here. So I'm going to take some of the, take these 2 pieces out and put them over here on some paper towels. I lost a little hunk of skin there because it stuck to the bottom of the pan here. So it looks like it's browning nicely, but the skin is not yet crispy and sort of chicharron-like. So I'm going to turn the temperature here up. We're going to bring this to 350 degrees. Once it has arrived at 350, I'll put the pork back in there, and you'll see that that skin of it will just, the skin of the pork will just puff up and be super crispy and, well, everything we love about chicharron. I've got the temperature that I need now, and I'm going to put this pork belly back in, but skin side down. I think I said 350 on the temperature for this, but actually should be to 370 is the temperature. You want that extra heat to make sure that the chicharron, the pork skin, really does puff up and get completely crunchy and not sort of chewy and sticky in your mouth. So we're going to let this cook now until we've reached that stage. It's going to be someplace in the neighborhood of 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. But we'll just keep looking at it, and I will show you what you're looking for. Okay, I've got to show you what this looks like here. Do you see how this looks like chicharron on the top. It's all puffed up. So it looked like that at about 3 minutes. This is at 5 minutes here. And I want to make sure that it is completely crunchy all the way through. At 3 minutes, it would only look crunchy at the top, but not be all the way through. So I'm going to take this out now, and we're going to cut it up. So pork belly, the meat, the fat, the crunchy chicharron on the outside. Now I'm going to slice this up. I think I should probably turn this oil off now. Yes, I can feel and hear the crunch as I go down between the scoring here. And then turn it, and we want pieces that are about a 1/2 inch or so. It's not going to be exact here. Now I know that you probably thought when you saw those 2 smallish pieces of pork belly that we weren't going to have very much meat, but once you chop it up, boy, you've got a lot. We're looking for about equal volume of the salpicón ingredients and the pork belly, the Kastakan here. We're going to just mix everything together and we will be ready to make our tacos. I will say the combination of ingredients here, the crispy, savory pork against the bright flavors of all of those vegetables and the habanero chili and the lime and all makes for a really unique and I would say one of the best taco experiences that you can find in Mexico. Now you can just serve everything at room temperature. The Castacán does not have to be hot for this kind of thing, so you could fry it up a little ahead of time and then chop it up. A lot of the taco fillings down in the Yucatan Peninsula are served at room temperature. It's a very hot climate there. So I've got a couple of warm tortillas. They always do have to be warm for making the classic Yucatan style tacos. And then we'll put a spoonful of the Castacán with the salpicón on each one of them. Boy, it looks so good. Okay, next thing that we're going to put here is a little bit of avocado. And I'm just going to sort of do this the way that a lot of the street vendors do it. I'm going to cut a couple of slices out of it like that and put one on each of the tacos here. And then if you really want to gild the lily, you can put a little crumbled chicharron on top of it just to emphasize the crunchiness of the chicharron that is on top of that. I'm just going to crunch up some of this and sprinkle it over the top. I like it a lot because I like that contrasting texture. It's like the skin that we've made on the Kastakan, but just even more, it's even lighter and crunchier. And so now, I can get all the cilantro off of my fingers there. We have tacos de Castacán estilo Yucateco.